I'd like you to take a deep, slow, gentle breath in. And let it go just as slowly. Feel the air moving in, cool and light. And then flowing out, warm and soft. As you breathe, you might notice your shoulders sink a little lower. You might notice the way your hands feel heavier now. How your jaw loosens ever so slightly. The world beyond this moment can wait. Right now, there's nothing you need to do. No place you need to be. Except here, safe and calm. If you wish, you can imagine you are sitting in a quiet corner of an old stone room. Somewhere far away from the noise of the world. There's a faint glow from a nearby fire. And the softest hint of bread baking in the air. Each slow breath brings you deeper into that peaceful space. Let your eyelids feel a little heavier with each moment. And if they wish to close, let them. You are welcome to simply listen and drift. As your mind settles, imagine hearing the gentle rustle of a linen cloth. The slow, careful placing of a wooden bowl on a sturdy table. And somewhere nearby, the warm crackle of a hearth. The warmth spreads through the room like a quiet promise. The kind of warmth that reaches not just your skin, but your thoughts. Our story tonight begins just before sunrise. In a village tucked between rolling fields and a winding river. A place where the morning mist rises like pale silk from the grass. And the cobblestone streets are still empty, still dreaming. In the center of this village, there is a small bakery. Its walls are made of weathered stone, the kind that has seen centuries pass. And its roof sags just slightly under the weight of countless seasons. Inside, the air is already warm, though the sun has not yet climbed the horizon. A single figure moves quietly within. The baker. He is not young, but not yet old. With broad hands dusted in flour, and eyes that seem to hold the calm of early mornings. On the workbench before him lies a row of pale, rising loaves. And beside them, a small wooden seal, carved with a pattern so intricate it almost seems alive. This is the baker's Hearthstone seal. It is said that for as long as this bakery has stood, every loaf made for travelers has been pressed with this mark. A circle for protection. A winding vine for safe return. And a star at its heart, for guidance on long roads. The tradition, the baker knows, is older than his grandfather. Older, perhaps, than the village itself. And so, with the first light of dawn brushing the bakery's shutters, he lifts the seal. And presses it gently into the warm dough. The soft imprint blooms across the surface. Like a blessing whispered into bread. If you want, I can now keep flowing directly into the next batch, where we linger on the medieval history of bread marks, the sensory richness of the oven, and the quiet magic of this baker's morning, while keeping the hypnotic, sleep-inducing pace. The seal rests in his palm for a moment longer. Its wood polished smooth by generations of hands. Each line of the carving softened by time. Yet still holding the delicate shapes that carry meaning. You can almost feel the faint ridges beneath your fingertips. Where the vine curves. Where the star points meet at the center. Some say the seal was carved from the wood of the first bread paddle. Ever used in the village's oven. Others believe it was once part of a pilgrim's walking staff. A staff that had touched holy places. Before finding its way here. Into the hands of the very first baker. The dough beneath it is warm. Alive in its quiet way. Rising under the baker's careful watch. When the seal presses down. There is no sound at all. Only the silent yielding of the dough. Accepting the mark as if it has been waiting for it. And the mark itself is not just decoration. In the old days, before most villagers could read or write, bread marks were like signatures. Each family, each bakery, each village oven had its own unique symbol. It told people who had baked the bread and for whom it had been made. In some towns, loaves for travelers were pressed with symbols of safe passage, so that anyone who saw them knew the bearer was to be welcomed, offered shelter, and given water for their journey. The baker presses the seal into each loaf slowly, with the patience of someone who knows that good work cannot be rushed. Outside, the mist is still curled between the cottages, drifting lazily as though the whole village is wrapped in a dream. Through the open window, a faint, early breeze slips in, cool and damp from the river. It brushes against the baker's sleeves, stirring the scent of the flour, the faint sweetness of the fermenting dough, and the earthy warmth of the oven stones. He works in rhythm. Press. Lift. Turn the loaf. Press again. Every now and then, he glances toward the small shelf above the bench. On it, beside a row of earthenware jars filled with seeds and dried herbs, rests a tiny cloth pouch. It is tied with a simple bit of twine, and inside it lies a pinch of ash from the bakery's very first fire. That fire, long extinguished, was said to have been lit from an ember carried in a pilgrim's lantern, all the way from a cathedral far to the east. And so, each morning, before the loaves go into the oven, the baker takes the pouch down, and lets a single grain of that ancient ash fall into the firebox. It is not enough to change the bread, but enough, perhaps, to carry the memory forward. In a way, it is as though every loaf he bakes is part of one long, unbroken chain, stretching back through the years, through hands now long gone, to a time when the world was lit only by hearths and stars. And this morning is no different. The oven waits, its arched mouth glowing faintly, like the horizon just before the sun breaks. The baker slides the loaves in, one by one, onto the hot stone floor. The sound they make is so soft, yet so satisfying. A faint, quick sigh, as the dough meets the heat. The scent begins to bloom immediately, rising into the warm air of the bakery, curling toward the window, ready to drift into the waking village. The oven's heat is deep, steady. Not a sudden burst of fire, but the lingering warmth of bricks that have been slowly, carefully fed all through the night. It is a beehive oven, arched and round, its stones blackened by years of smoke. In the Middle Ages, ovens like this were the heart of a village. Some belonged to the lord of the manor, others to the church, and many to the whole community. A place where every family's bread was baked side by side. Here, in this village, the bakery oven has burned almost every day, for over 100 harvests. The baker stands before it, feeling the heat on his face, the way it seeps into his skin, and spreads down into his chest. He moves with a slow, careful grace, sliding the long-handled wooden peel under each pale, marked loaf. The peel is worn smooth, its edges darkened from decades of use. He lifts a loaf, the dough swaying ever so slightly on its paddle, and sets it gently down upon the oven's stone floor. The moment dough meets heat, a sigh escapes, a soft exhale, as if the loaf has been holding its breath until now. One by one, the loaves are placed in a wide, gentle circle within the oven's belly, the hearthstone marks still visible on their tender tops. The baker pauses after the last one is set down. He stands very still, listening. It is not just the crackle of embers that he hears, but the faintest, almost imperceptible rustle. The quiet expansion of dough as it begins to rise against the heat. The whisper of crust forming where moments ago there was only softness. Outside the bakery, the first golden light of day is beginning to spill over the eastern hills. It touches the rooftops first. The slate shingles glowing faintly. The thatch catching just a thread of fire. A rooster calls once in the distance. And somewhere, a single church bell rings a low, solitary note. Not for service. Not yet. But perhaps to remind the village that the day is waiting. The baker returns to his bench. He wipes the flour from his hands. Though the white dust still clings to his knuckles. Settled deep into the lines of his skin. On the bench beside him lies a small bundle of parchment. Inside are names. Written in a hand finer than his own. Of travelers expected to pass through the village today. A tinker heading north. A mother and her 2 children bound for the next market town. A messenger on the long road to the coast. Each will pass by this bakery. Each will be offered a loaf bearing the Hearthstone blessing. The blessing is not a prayer spoken aloud. It is not ink on a page. It is something older, simpler. It is the warmth that lasts long after the bread has been eaten. It is the feeling of home carried in the heart. Even when the road is long. Inside the oven, the loaves begin to swell. Their pale skin turns a soft gold. Then deepens. Like honey held up to the light. Tiny cracks appear in the crust. Releasing the first rich scent of baking bread. It is a smell that seems to fill not only the room, but the mind. Wrapping around every thought. Slowing them. Quieting them. As though time itself has decided to rest a while. The scent now drapes itself across the whole bakery. Thick, comforting, and full. It has the sweetness of wheat harvested under a late summer sun. And the faint smokiness of oak logs burned down to embers overnight. Long ago, in villages like this one, bakers learned that each type of wood left its own whisper in the bread. Beech gave a clean, light flavor. Oak a deeper, steadier warmth. And fruit woods, when they could be spared, offered a softness almost like perfume. Today, the baker has chosen oak. The same as his father. And his father before him. He leans in. Peering into the oven's curved chamber. Watching the rise slow and the crust firm. With each passing moment, the marks from the Hearthstone seal grow clearer. The lines darkening ever so slightly. Against the golden crust. Those who receive these loaves will know the mark instantly. Not because it is rare, but because it is constant. Through seasons of plenty and seasons of want. The baker's seal has never changed. It is a promise that, so long as this oven burns, the road will always hold a place of welcome. He takes up the peel once more. Sliding it beneath the first baked loaf. It lifts easily. Its base crisp and dark. Its body light yet strong in his hands. When he sets it on the cooling rack, it releases a sound. Not quite a crack. Not quite a sigh. The quiet settling of crust as it meets the air. One by one. He brings the others out. Placing them in neat rows. Each a mirror of the last. Each carrying its own blessing. Outside. The mist is lifting from the streets. A cart's wheel creaks over cobblestones. The low murmur of voices begins to thread through the air. The slow waking of the village. A small shape appears in the bakery's doorway. It is a boy of perhaps 10 years. His cloak damp at the hem from the morning grass. He carries a satchel across his shoulder. The strap patched in 3 places. The baker knows him. The tinker's son. Sent ahead to fetch the day's bread. The boy steps inside. Drawn by the heat and the scent. He does not speak at first. Just closes his eyes for a moment. Breathing in the warm air. The baker smiles. reaching for the smallest of the Hearthstone loaves. He wraps it in a strip of cloth, tucking the ends beneath, and hands it to the boy. No coin passes between them. This loaf is for the road. Part of the old agreement. That travelers and their kin would be fed in exchange for stories, news from other towns, and sometimes simply goodwill. The boy thanks him in a voice still soft from sleep. When he leaves, the bell above the bakery door gives a single, clear note. One that seems to hang in the air for a moment longer than it should. The baker stands for a while in the doorway, watching as the boy's small figure disappears into the mist, the loaf warm against his chest. Not long after the boy has gone, the sound of hooves draws near. A slow, steady rhythm on the cobblestones, muffled now and then by the lingering fog. Through the mist, a rider appears. His cloak is travel-worn, edges frayed, and his satchel bulges with folded papers. A messenger, bound for the coastal city 2 days' ride away. The baker greets him quietly, as one greets an old friend, even if they have never met before. He selects a round loaf from the cooling rack, its seal clear and dark against the golden crust. As he passes it across the counter, his fingers linger for a moment on the surface of the bread, just long enough for the messenger to notice and understand. The messenger nods. He knows the meaning of the Hearthstone blessing. In his work, the road can be long and cold, and the warmth of a remembered kindness is a light that no weather can extinguish. He tucks the loaf into his satchel, as carefully as if it were a letter sealed with wax, and rides on, the fog swallowing the sound of his horse's hooves, until all is still again. By mid-morning, the mist has thinned, and the sun lays its first full light across the village square. 2 more travelers arrive. A mother with a kerchief tied neatly under her chin, and her 2 small children, each clutching a bundle wrapped in coarse linen. Their journey is short, just to the next market town. But the baker treats them with the same care, as if they were bound across the sea. For the children, he chooses the smallest loaves, the kind that fit easily into small hands. He leans down, and in a voice as warm as the oven's glow, tells them the story of the seal. How the vine means safe return. How the star means guidance on the road. How the circle means protection. As though the loaf itself were a small, unbroken wall around them. The children listen with wide eyes, the bread warm in their palms. When they leave, their laughter carries down the street, soft at first, then fading into the hum of the day. Hours pass. The bakery's shelves empty. The sunlight shifts, and the long shadows of the afternoon begin to reach toward the oven stones. The baker wipes the bench clean, folds the linen cloths, and sets the Hearthstone seal back in its wooden box. It rests there like a treasure, its work for the day complete. Outside, the village begins to quiet again. Chickens are herded into coops. Doors are bolted, and smoke curls from chimneys, mixing with the scent of cooling bread. Somewhere, the church bell tolls vespers. A slow, measured sound that feels like the day taking a deep breath. The baker sits by the oven's side, hands resting on his knees. He watches the last embers fade to a soft, glowing red, and listens to the quiet. It is the same quiet his father knew, and his father before him. The same quiet that will remain long after he is gone. When another pair of hands will lift the Hearthstone seal, press it into fresh dough, and send another blessing out into the world. The oven is quiet now. Only the faintest whisper of heat breathes from its stones. The air is still warm enough to hold the memory of the morning's fire. And the scent of baked bread clings like a gentle shawl around the room. The baker moves slowly, as though the air itself has grown thick, as though time has loosened its hold. He runs his fingertips across the smooth grain of the counter, the worn wood polished by years of flour, water, and hands. Every mark in the wood tells a story. A small notch from where his father's knife slipped while trimming twine. A faint burn mark from a pan set down too quickly. These are not flaws. They are the bakery's quiet diary. Outside, night folds itself gently over the village. The sky deepens from blue to indigo, and the first lanterns are lit along the street. Their light trembles slightly in the evening breeze, casting small ripples of gold across the cobblestones. Somewhere, a dog barks once. Then all is still. The baker sets one last loaf aside. A loaf not meant for sale. He wraps it loosely in cloth, then sets it on the sill, so the night air can kiss it cool. It will be his supper. Bread, a wedge of cheese, and a cup of watered ale. Simple enough to fill the stomach, and light enough for sleep to follow. As he eats, he hears the low hush of the wind moving through the alley. It carries the scent of wood smoke, the faint perfume of night-blooming flowers, and the cool promise of rest. He chews slowly, letting each bite dissolve into something softer, until he is no longer eating, but simply tasting. When the bread is gone, and the cup is empty, he closes the shutters, banking the last glow of the oven, and climbs the narrow stairs to his room above. The bed is small, but the linen is clean, and the pillow is filled with sweet-smelling straw. He lays down, hands folded loosely over his chest, eyes tracing the wooden beams above. He thinks of the boy, the messenger, the mother and her children. In his mind, he sees them safe. The boy sleeping beneath a wool blanket, the messenger dozing by a quiet fire, the children tucked in close, while their mother hums them toward dreams. The baker's breath slows. The day folds itself shut, like the lid of a wooden box, like the closing of a book, whose story will open again tomorrow. The last thing he feels is the steady warmth of the blessing, not in the bread, but in himself. And then, the room grows very still. And so, in a village that sleeps under stars older than its own streets, where bread carries blessings, and blessings carry warmth, the night deepens, and all is quiet.